Hey folks, welcome into the News 12 Now desk. Thanks for joining us here on this Thursday, June the 15th, 8 o'clock here in Augusta. Taking a quick peek outside. Let me pull this up real fast. Let's see. Taking a quick look outside. A little overcast today, but temperature-wise, not doing too bad. About 70 right now. We've had a lot of rain, and looks like we may have a little bit more. Shouldn't be too much, though. Definitely not anything like we saw yesterday. Okay, right now we're taking a look at our top headlines, some of the big stories from around the area. First, though, want to remind you guys real quick to subscribe to the YouTube, show you how to do that. So here we are on YouTube. If you just go to WRDW News 12. And here we are, right here. You can just press the subscribe button right there, and then you can watch our headlines live. We do all of our streaming on here, also on our streaming app, WRDW. Whoops. Our WRDW streaming app. So if you don't have those two things, those would be great resources for you to check out. Keeps you up to date with everything going on in our community. But okay, let's jump into it now with top headlines. As always, we start here in the CSRA. In any emergency situation, you want to get to the nearest ER as soon as possible. The same holds true when you want to take your pet in for some care. But in Augusta, there's only one 24/7 emergency animal clinic, and it's only open 24 hours on certain days. Sydney Hood talked to one woman who had to take her pet to Columbia for emergency care, and she is not the only one.
She's not, and it's confirmed here on this post Lydia Pierce made on Nextdoor less than a week ago. She's calling on pet lovers to bring in their ideas for a 24/7 emergency animal care clinic here in the area. And a lot of these comments are agreeing with her. You've got this one right here saying they had to make 4 trips to Columbia just to get their dog care. And the goal of this meeting, she tells me, is to get a general idea of where to start.
This is our only little man. That's Sky.
He's like any other pup, playful, happy, and seeks attention.
Want to get up here with your mama?
3 weeks ago, these playful moments were almost no more.
Little Sky here ate a nut from a sago palm. And, well, he didn't even eat the whole thing. He just ate a little piece of it. By the time that happened, all the vets had already closed.
Leaving Sky to travel more than an hour to get that life-saving care.
I wasn't even able to drive because I was so upset. The minute we walked in, they took him to the back.
Then the waiting began.
When the doctor came out and said that, I just want you to know he's got a 50-50 chance of surviving. He might not make it. Good to see you, be with your mama.
Sky's lucky to be alive.
If we would have had to go farther than we did, I don't know whether he'd be here or not. But if we would have had a local availability, you know, we wouldn't have had to speed to Columbia.
It was the wake-up call Sky's owner needed.
We're asking for ideas of how to go about to get this started.
Calling to the community for a solution.
But if it works in Columbia, why can't it work in Augusta? We want input, suggestions of how to go about this and make it happen.
Sydney Hood there reporting for us. And Tuesday's meeting is at the Stratford Clubhouse off Aylesbury Drive in Evans. It starts at 7 o'clock and everybody is welcome to go. Local vet staff are also saying some of them work 10-hour days, 6 days a week, and some are running entire days by themselves, a one-person job doing a two-person job type of situation. A man has been arrested in connection with the deadly shooting last month in Aiken. The Aiken Department of Public Safety says 19-year-old Jaden Mitchell has been charged with the murder of Amari Williams and attempted murder of Cecily Weatherford, as well as a minor. Amari was shot inside his car on Red Street back in May. Excuse me, real quick. His fiancee Cecily was in the passenger seat when a car drove up next to them and shot into the window. Amari was shot in the head. Mitchell is now being charged with 2 counts of attempted murder, 3 counts of possession of a weapon during a violent crime. He's in the Aiken County Jail without bond. More community support is pouring in for 13-year-old Ashton Reichert, injured in the Aiken Walmart shooting. Her recovery is moving forward after surgery. The Shepherd Blood Center says more than 20 units of blood were used to help save her life, and now her church is having a blood drive. Our Taylor Martin talked to Ashton's great aunt, who's also a pastor at that church.
This is the church Ashton Reichert attends, and now it's the driving force behind support for her recovery.
Mercy Church is not just where she goes to church, it's her family.
and her home.
Ashton works in our media department upstairs for Sunday morning services. She's involved in that. She's involved in our youth. She gives hugs every time you see her, smiles.
On Sundays, you'll find this sanctuary full of people who love her. But this week, they've dropped off cards and gifts for her. And this weekend, blood.
Ashton received 14 units of blood in her first surgery, and that came from Shepherd's Blood Supply, and our family is very, very grateful that it was available. And so to give back to them, to say thank you to them, we organized a blood drive.
They're giving back, hoping to touch someone's life the way the Aiken community has touched theirs. And the love from local businesses just keeps on giving.
Even though we're a small town, we all come together with a big heart. And you can purchase these here at Vendor Street. They're $5, and all of the $5 is going straight to Ashton's family.
Ashton's aunt says her family is so grateful.
And I would also like to say a big thank you to the community from her family. They are so extremely grateful. She is doing well, but she's got a long road ahead of her.
On Saturday, the church will host a blood drive in honor of Ashton. And if you'd like to donate, we'll have more information about it on our website, WRDW.com. Reporting in Aiken, Taylor Martin, on your side.
Thanks for that, Taylor. And if you want to wish well wishes to Ashton, there is another way, a couple other ways. This afternoon, you could stop by the American Legion Post 26 in Aiken to drop off cards starting at 5 o'clock. They'll also have some crafts there if you want to make a couple cards. And this Saturday, you can shop at both Vicky's Boutique locations in Aiken. 25% of sales will go to Ashton and her family. And then again, they talked about the blood drive up there at the church. Comedian Matt Rife is bringing his tour to Columbia County, but some fans are upset they did not get their hands on a ticket. On Rife's Instagram page, some fans were complaining about the price and the sold-out shows in the comment section. Some are waiting in multiple pre-sale lines, still not able to buy a ticket. So why is it so hard? Our Nick Veland talked to the director of the Columbia County Performing Arts Center to find out.
Getting into these doors at the Columbia County Performing Arts Center is in high demand for a comedy show in December, and even with adding a second show, it wasn't enough to meet the demand.
Alarm went off in my phone, and I said, oh, y'all, you know, Matt Rife tickets go on sale at 10 o'clock. I gotta try to log in to my phone.
After logging on, Kelly Klein got put into a queue, hopeful to get Matt Rife tickets. Rife recently exploded in popularity on social media and is now touring around the world, including Evans.
I think I was 1,252, and it went pretty fast. I was like, all right, I'm in.
She and so many across the country got upsetting news.
Only to hear they were sold out.
Rife sold out both shows here and other sites globally. The Performing Arts Center says that this show is bringing the most excitement in its building's history.
And so when I shared the post initially, so many people were like, oh, it's so funny. I'm going to try to get tickets. And I thought then that this could be a problem.
Concern also comes from secondary sites coming in for resale.
Obviously, it's not what we want to see. We want to see as many of the community be able to buy seats to shows and see the shows at this building. But, you know, unfortunately for this show, there were a few instances where we were not able to do that.
Jacking up the prices to get a seat if you weren't one of the few to get a ticket initially.
They're $400 and $500, and personally, I won't pay that kind of money to see anything.
Even Rife is telling his fans to not buy resale, leaving fans frustrated.
It's just the whole process of trying to get tickets through Ticketmaster these days is disappointing, to say the least.
The county says that every show is different and that the performer controls the tickets. Even with this being the case, the Performing Arts Center says that they look to get tickets to those in the community. In Columbia County, Nick Veland, on your side.
Thanks, Nick. So what are the solutions to this? Well, one possible solution for larger venues could be the James Brown Arena. The new plans allow for 10,000 seats. That's more than 2,000 more than what they currently offer, and much more than the 2,000 that the Columbia County Performing Arts Center offers. Governor Kemp signed a bill to create a special sales tax to go towards the funding of that arena. It just needs voters' approval in November. If voters do approve it, construction will start on a new JBA in 2024. On a national scale, scrutiny of Live Nation and Ticketmaster has intensified. Members of Congress are calling for an investigation of their practices. The lawsuit between Taylor Swift fans and Ticketmaster will pick back up in May. It alleges Ticketmaster and its parent company imposed higher prices on fans in pre-sale, sale, and resale markets. It was a rare sight to see along the Savannah River yesterday. We were streaming it live here, and then we talked about it yesterday on our newscast as well. All of the spillway gates at the Strom-Thurmond Dam opened up for the first time in about a year. A lot of people, hundreds, came to the riverbank to see all 23 gates open. Our Hallie Turner shows us why it's such a big draw for people of all ages.
As the buzzer goes off, phones go up, capturing the water coming down.
Amazing.
Amazing. You are almost crying if you see it. It's just emotional.
It's something that everybody should try to come see at least once in their lifetime.
While many come from near and far,
they're traveling from the Netherlands.
These 23 floodgates play an important role throughout the CSRA.
This structure is the primary flood protection for everything downstream. City of Augusta, North Augusta, the communities in Evans, and so it does play a vital role in flood protections.
Project manager Scott Hyatt says they try to check the gates every 1 to 3 years in case they are needed in emergency flood situations.
They're checking for vibrations, they're checking to make sure that the equipment operates electrically the way that it's supposed to, and they don't observe anything else out of the ordinary.
Hundreds of people gather to watch more than 400,000 gallons of water per second fall off the lake.
I've never seen it up close, but you know, TV and stuff, pretty exciting. I keep hoping I'll see some fish come out of it.
While it may look like a lot of water leaving the lake,
it'd be an insignificant amount compared to the size of the lake. It's an 80,000 acre lake. It's over 150 feet deep at the dam, so we'll have an impact of less than a tenth of an inch on the lake elevation.
At the end of the day, it's an important structure with a nice view.
Our own little version of Niagara Falls or something. We just turn it on every once in a while, and people love to come out and see it. You get a nice cool breeze off of there, a little bit of mist. It makes for a really enjoyable morning.
And it was pretty cool. We had Hallie live out there. She was interviewing kids. You saw those two people from the Netherlands. I don't know if they came over just for the test or if they just happened to be here when it happened. But either way, pretty cool thing to see. And it doesn't happen very often. I know the last time was, I think last year, Scott Hyatt said, but then the time before that was like 2017. So it had gone about 5 years without actually being tested. Okay. A nonprofit is gifting the Children's Hospital of Georgia more than $1 million. The money is coming from the Cure Search, which raises money for childhood cancer research and treatment therapies. News 12's Emma Ellis introduces us to one man who says his family's lives were saved by donations like this one.
Michael Miller's family knows about the effects of cancer more than most.
My daughter says that we are the luckiest, unlucky family in America in that we've had 4 cancers.
In fact, around 25 years ago, his daughter was diagnosed with ALL leukemia.
I opened up an old textbook that said, and this is the first sentence, leukemia, an almost always fatal blood disease.
Because of these experiences, Miller decided to get involved with Cure Search for children's cancer. Cure Search recently awarded the Medical College of Georgia a $1.2 million gift.
Our mission is to fund pediatric cancer research and early phase clinical trials that are on a fast track to being a drug and a therapy that can be used for children facing the hardest cancers with the highest unmet need.
This award will fund research aimed at treating children with relapsed brain tumors.
Through the research that's being done here and throughout the country, 91% of the children survive ALL leukemia. And we want to get brain cancer into that same category of survival.
For Miller and his family, projects like this are a matter of life or death.
My wife has had breast cancer. My daughter's had leukemia. I've had 2 types of cancer, and yet because of science, because of research, because research dollars have gone into finding cures, we are all here today.
In Augusta, Emma Ellis, on your side.
Cure Search hopes the funding will help the doctors give children new, less intense options for treatment and improve their quality of life. Really amazing to hear that gentleman's story. This year's Cyber Patriot summer camps are back. It's a program designed for middle and high school students interested in going into cybersecurity when they're older. It's the first fully in-person camp they've had since the pandemic. The executive director of the Alliance says they enjoy teaching kids who are eager to learn.
One of the unique things this year is we partner with the Boys and Girls Club of Augusta, and they pick them up in the morning, drop them off, and we're ecstatic about that partnership.
They tell us there are about 8 students from the Boys and Girls Club, some from the 7 counties surrounding Fort Gordon, even across the river as well. This is one of 3 camps planned for the summer. It's been 1 year now since 4-year-old Izzy Scott drowned during a private swim lesson in Burke County. Lexi Tenuzin, his instructor, was arrested and charged with involuntary manslaughter in January. In April, Governor Kemp signed Izzy's law, which regulates private swim lessons. Izzy's family also created a foundation in his honor, educating parents on how to get their kids into licensed swim lessons. The Saluda County Sheriff is saying his team is shrinking. Sheriff Josh Price called on council members in the community for help. He says about half of people still employed there are working 2 jobs to support their families. The other 25% of the workforce left for higher paying jobs. The sheriff's worried about losing even more people.
This is my home, and to serve in law enforcement, you have to want to help others. And that's what this job's all about, is helping people.
Our sister station in Columbia says leaders heard his request but have not made any changes yet. Sheriff Price says the most recent pay raise helped with some starting salaries, but the county did not increase pay for dispatchers, patrol, and deputies working in the jail. Move on to some state news here. We'll start on the Georgia side. Georgia is the state with the fastest growing film industry in the country. There's concern that the industry could slow if the state's film tax credit changes. First passed in 2005, Georgia's film tax credit provides an income tax credit to production companies that spend at least $500,000 on qualified productions. The base credit rate is 20% with an additional 10% for a qualified promotion of the state. Our State House reporter Abby Kasoris has more.
Lawmakers feel now is the time to roll back or eliminate tax credits. One of the ones they're considering, the film tax credit.
This is what it really had a hand in building. It wasn't just so that these big companies could come here and shoot and take a bunch of money. There were things built upon the profits from that. There were things built upon, there was an economy built on that.
Tiffany Fitzhenry is a producer and an advocate of the Georgia Film Tax Credit. She says studios like this prove the credit is encouraging growth. In fact, a state audit found Georgia's soundstage space has grown from less than 50,000 feet in 2009 to more than 6 million, on track to surpass New York and California.
Everything that we've built now, it can take us to a whole nother place. Or, terrifyingly, for a lot of people who have a lot of money in the ground here, things could really go the way of some other states, right? To where if we get rid of the tax credit, all that's been built just kind of goes away.
The film tax credit has grown from more than $600 million in 2016 to approximately $1 billion in 2019. That's a 44% increase. The Georgia Department of Economic Development estimates for every dollar invested in the credit, the state receives nearly $4 in return.
We do appreciate everybody being here today.
Lawmakers under the Gold Dome are holding a tax credit panel, further analyzing each credit and their return on investment. The state's economist Jeffrey Dorfman suggests credits should be used sparingly.
Film tax credits, I think, would fall more in the bucket of it was a new industry when we started the film tax credit program. Now the Georgia film industry is a mature industry. Now I would think that the legislature would be sort of claiming victory on creating this great industry and looking to shrink or end those credits.
The state's Department of Economic Development feels strongly that if any big changes are made, it could impact companies moving or who have moved to the area. Now, this panel will be meeting throughout the summer, continuing to gather information before any legislation might be drafted. At the Georgia State Capitol, I'm Abby Kasoris.
All right, thanks for that, Abby. And just this week, we showed you the trailer of Dennis Quaid's new movie, The Hill. Much of the film was shot right here in Augusta. To take a look at that trailer, you can head over to our website, WRDW.com. Just search The Hill. We've got the trailer there. Lake Olmsted, pretty prominently featured in that one. And if you look real closely, for about a half a second, you can see the back of Tim Strong's head. So, pretty cool. The city of Atlanta is taking recycling to a whole new level. It recently announced it'll be sending 2 of its MARTA rail cars to become artificial reefs. Chelsea Bimeford shows us how that'll work.
We're looking to reef 2 cars this summer.
From the streets of Atlanta to the shores of Savannah,
Some of MARTA's oldest rail cars are heading to Georgia's coast.
Rail cars have been proven to be fully functional as artificial habitats, offering support to smaller marine life.
MARTA's sustainability director Richard Thomas says the cars will create a stable area for corals and algae to grow and will attract fish and other underwater organisms. Last week, MARTA's board of directors approved a multi-million-dollar deal for a contracting company to clean and strip 8 rail cars before they're submerged into the Atlantic Ocean by Georgia's Department of Natural Resources.
They could have material in them that needs special care in cleaning and getting all of the solvents and grease and everything off, so there's an environmental aspect to that.
According to the U.S. Department of the Interior, the Artificial Reef Program began decades ago and has helped fuel not only underwater environments but also local economies by increasing tourism and commercial fishing. According to Georgia's Coastal Resources Division, there are currently 30 artificial reefs along Georgia's coast, made of things like tugboats, chicken cages, and old barges. MARTA plans to reef their first ever cars in August to avoid contact with an endangered species per federal guidelines.
The right whale mates off of Georgia, and apparently during mating season they don't want them running into train cars that weren't there.
DNR will be footing some of the cost to do this, but the exact cost has not yet been released. SNAP benefits help get food on the table for more than 1.5 million Georgians, but now a handful of people are saying they haven't gotten their benefits. This week, several people waited outside the Department of Human Services in Atlanta, saying they've been waiting for months to get their SNAP benefits. One woman says it's been nearly 2 months, and she depends on SNAP to feed her family.
I'm a disabled grandparent trying to raise 2 children, 2 grandchildren, so the benefits are very important for us. Living on a fixed income, trying to make it, basically.
DHS says they are working as quickly as possible to get applications and renewals processed. They say they're actively trying to hire to fill positions, but they are being impacted by federal requirements. Senator Raphael Warnock just introduced new legislation to address the country's workforce shortage, starting with the aviation industry. Last week, Senator Warnock joined a bipartisan group of colleagues in introducing a bill aimed at helping to recruit and train pilots, mechanics, and aviation manufacturing workers. All right, let's head across the river now to South Carolina. After months of urging from Governor McMaster, a bill to reform South Carolina's bond law is now headed to his desk. Lawmakers agreed on a compromise yesterday, negotiating differences between what the House of Representatives passed and what the Senate passed earlier this year. State House reporter Mary Green has the details.
This bill has been a major priority for leaders here at the State House this year and for law enforcement.
It's all about keeping the public safe. And that's what we want to do.
Under the bill, people who commit a violent crime like murder or armed robbery or a felony involving a gun while out on bond for another felony gun or violent offense would automatically have that initial bond revoked. Then a new bond hearing would have to be held in circuit court, and it would be harder for them to bond out if they keep reoffending. Lawmakers struck a compromise to add up to an additional 5 years in prison for people convicted of committing a violent crime while out on bond for a different violent crime. That would be considered a separate indictment, so the person would get a new trial and a new jury.
We still adhere to what we believe is the law of the land in the greatest country in the history of the world, that when we have a person that they're presumed innocent. But we do have a problem when we have someone that is out on bond and they commit another crime, and so we're attempting to address some of those issues.
But some lawmakers argued this would be unfair and potentially unconstitutional to add on that time for someone who was not found guilty of that initial charge, because without it, they wouldn't have been out on bond in the first place.
This bill does not punish a single person for saying that you did something wrong that you didn't do. This bill does not punish a single judge because they deny bond for somebody that should be on the street.
The bill also includes new electronic monitoring requirements and a guarantee that people whose bond is revoked under this bill could get a trial within 6 months, giving judges some discretion to delay that. Lawmakers say they had been negotiating this compromise for weeks and earned the approval in both chambers here at the State House on Wednesday to send it to the governor. Reporting from the State House, I'm Mary Green.
Most of this bill would go into effect immediately upon the governor's signature, but some elements would be delayed to give groups like SLED and bail bondsmen some time to create and put into place new policies. Officials at Fort Jackson are investigating the death of a soldier who didn't return from a land navigation training Monday. The soldier, who's been identified as drill sergeant candidate Jaime Contreras, was reported missing roughly 30 minutes after failing to return from the exercise. This is the first casualty on base this year.
We're all deeply saddened by this loss. We are providing support to both his family and his teammates, and we'll continue to do so.
Right now, they haven't released a cause of death yet. Contreras was originally from Las Vegas, but was stationed at Fort Liberty in North Carolina. He just started his 8th training week for the Drill Sergeant Academy down at Fort Jackson. A handful of South Carolina lawmakers are introducing a bill to limit regulations on singing the national anthem at the U.S. Capitol. This comes after a children's choir from Greenville, South Carolina, was cut short by Capitol Police while singing the anthem at the Capitol earlier this month. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy says he gave the group permission to be there and was outraged. Capitol Police say it was a miscommunication and later apologized. Now, Representatives Joe Wilson, William Timmons, and Jeff Duncan are introducing the Let Freedom Sing Act. They say no one should be interrupted from singing the national anthem as long as it doesn't interfere with government business. SLED agents arrested a 20-year-old in connection to a shooting at SC State back in March. The late-night shooting left one person injured at an apartment complex. Daniel Hutto is charged with accessory before the fact of attempted murder. Agents believe he gave the suspect the gun used to fire into a crowd of students based on some surveillance footage they have. No word yet on if they found the suspect. Since then, the university committed to adding several safety measures. Moving along here to some national news now. Following his historic arraignment on federal charges, former President Donald Trump told a crowd of supporters they had every right to have the documents. He had every right to have the documents. Christian Benavidez reports from Miami.
Attorney General Merrick Garland pushed back Wednesday on Republican criticism that the Justice Department case against former President Trump, led by Special Counsel Jack Smith, is politically motivated.
He has assembled a group of experienced and talented prosecutors and agents who share his commitment to integrity and the rule of law.
On Tuesday, Trump pleaded not guilty to 37 felony counts at a federal courthouse in Miami. Afterwards, he went after the Justice Department and Smith.
He's a raging and uncontrolled Trump hater.
Trump is accused of allegedly retaining classified documents illegally and trying to hide them from Justice Department investigators after receiving a subpoena. He suggested outgoing presidents can take any records they want.
Under the Presidential Records Act, which is civil, not criminal, I had every right to have these documents.
Legal experts tell CBS News the Presidential Records Act draws a distinction between personal and presidential records, requiring all official records to be turned over. Fellow GOP presidential hopefuls reacted to the indictment.
I can't defend what is alleged, but the former president has a right to his day in court.
I don't think that most Republicans support the conduct that's detailed in that indictment.
If Trump wins back the White House, he promised to appoint a special prosecutor to go after President Biden and his family. Christian Benavidez, CBS News, Miami.
The judge said Trump is now barred from talking to his co-defendant and aide about the case, and he was told to not engage with potential witnesses. Since many of those witnesses work for Trump, enforcing that order is going to be difficult. Interest rates have been on the rise over the past year, but that could be changing. Natalie Brand is in Washington to explain.
With the price of consumer goods easing, Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell says it's time to hit the pause button on interest rate hikes.
Today we decided to leave our policy interest rate unchanged.
The Fed boosted a key rate 10 times over the past 15 months with the goal of slowing record-high inflation. A report on Tuesday showed a significant drop to just 4% in May, closer to the Fed's target of 2%.
The Federal Reserve is pausing rates because it has seen great progress in inflation, and it doesn't want to keep raising rates, potentially tipping the economy into a slowdown that morphs into a recession.
The decision is good news for Americans looking for a loan, as borrowing money has become more expensive. Credit card interest rates are at a record 20.4%. A used car loan is now at 11% compared to 8% a year ago. And mortgage rates are up significantly. Those high rates are not only deterring potential home buyers, but also keeping some home owners from selling.
They're so comfortable with that 3% or even less interest rate that they're locked in at for 30 years. They're a bit nervous about bumping up into something higher and what that payment's going to look like.
However, the Fed's pause might be short-lived. Powell is not ruling out a future hike.
Nearly all committee participants view it as likely that some further rate increases will be appropriate this year to bring inflation down to 2% over time.
The Fed will make its next decision on rates in July. Natalie Brandt, CBS News, Washington.
Good news if you are a fan of the sports gambling. North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper is making sports betting legal across the state. He just signed that bill yesterday. It gained support in the House and the Senate earlier this month. It allows bettors on professional or college sports to make them online, so you don't have to go to a casino. You have to be 21 years or older to place a bet. A new clinical trial could help find cancer earlier. Doctors in the UK are trying a breath test which could detect gut, pancreas, and more types of cancer. Doctors say it has a 90% accuracy rating, and we know the earlier cancer spotted, the better chance you have of beating it.
At this stage, this is when the best should be placed. When I say the patient has a definitive symptoms, like if somebody can't eat, that is too late. So we'd like to get in a stage which is early enough to provide a curative treatment.
Dr. Ellis says this could become life-saving technology. Well, it's summertime, which means a lot of people may be hitting the beaches, going in the ocean to get a swim, and you may see a shark or two while you're out there. Tom Costello got a chance to learn more about sharks just as families hit the beach this summer.
I like that hammerhead. I like that shark. It's so big.
There's something about those teeth, those eyes, that fin.
Sharks love to eat people.
No, they don't like to eat people. Young or old, sharks capture our imagination. Here at the Georgia Aquarium, they've got hammerheads, tiger sharks, sand sharks, silvertip, and silky sharks. 15 in all.
I had oatmeal for breakfast. Is that going to make me more of an appealing target?
Absolutely not. They don't like fiber. Yeah.
They don't like fiber.
Yeah. Well.
Okay, good. Dr. Katie Lyons is a shark researcher and my personal underwater guide today.
Take some slow, deep breaths.
Within minutes of our shark cage going into the water, Katie's enthusiasm was contagious.
So the ones with the big, tall dorsal fin, oh, just right there. Look to your right.
Yep, I see it. Oh my gosh. Being submerged in their world is truly sensory overload. The water is clear but cold, as these giants of the deep stay in constant motion, circling.
It's just a totally immersive experience. Oh goodness, what is that? That's a big shark.
So that is one of our sand tiger sharks. They're a really cool species.
Swimming at the top of the food chain, they are essential to the ocean's life cycle.
All of these sharks play critical roles in the ecosystem, and they help keep everything in balance.
Usually, sharks are interested in fish or seals, not humans, but attacks do happen. In May, a 13-year-old fended off a bull shark. Most occurred in Florida, followed by New York, Hawaii, and California. Still, 2022 brought the fewest shark attacks in 10 years, 41 unprovoked bites in the U.S.
So you're more likely to have a coconut fall on you and kill you than to be bit by a shark.
A coconut.
A coconut.
But there are some things you can do to avoid shark contact. Swim with a buddy close to shore. Don't swim near seals or schools of fish. Don't wear jewelry, and avoid excessive splashing. If a shark gets too close,
You can hit it on the nose, you can hit it in the gills, or poke it in the eye.
And then get away.
And then get away, right? You want to get out of the water as soon as you can.
Dr. Lyons is researching the microplastics sharks are ingesting and how their populations are affected by climate change.
If they're affected, then everything else below them is affected.
Since you have been so excited about sharks since you were a little girl, what's it like to see them face to face like this?
I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, it's, again, such a different experience being in with them rather than on the other side of an acrylic.
Doesn't seem like my cup of tea, jumping in there with sharks. Even if you're in the cage like that, those things are, they could be dangerous. I know they just said the whole story was about that they're not attacking people, but still, they could. Okay, on Wednesday, officials with the Southern Baptist Convention upheld a decision to expel 2 of its churches, including one of its largest, for having female pastors. As Janet Shamlian tells us, delegates also voted women should not hold any leadership positions in the church.
The affirmative has it, and the motion carries.
The vote to ban female pastors in SBC churches praised like a Sunday sermon.
It puts us all on the same page about what a pastor is and who a pastor is. A biblically qualified man.
Members at the annual convention in New Orleans today overwhelmingly favored a constitutional amendment that requires a church, quote, employs only men as qualified pastors.
And Saddleback Church is not in friendly cooperation with the Southern Baptist Convention.
The SBC also refused to reinstate California megachurch Saddleback, expelled in February for ordaining women pastors. Founding pastor Rick Warren made a futile appeal to the almost 13,000 church representatives, known as messengers.
I'm not asking you to agree with my church. I am asking you to act like a Southern Baptist.
5 churches with female pastors have been expelled from membership recently, including Fern Creek Baptist in Louisville, Kentucky. Pastor Linda Barnes Popham failed to get its expulsion overturned as well.
This is a sad day for Southern Baptists because they are losing gifted and talented and called women of God. As we continue to proclaim the gospel, why they want to get rid of folks like us makes no sense.
What does this say to the millions of women in the churches?
It says to those women, you are not valued.
The SBC was actually formed right here in Augusta back in 1845. It's the nation's largest Protestant denomination. Membership has dropped about 9% over the last 3 years. Well, this is kind of a weird one right here. Authorities say human body parts were stolen and then sold from a morgue at a Harvard Medical School in Boston. A federal indictment accuses the morgue's manager, Cedric Lodge, of stealing portions of dissected cadavers and bringing them to his New Hampshire home. Prosecutors say Lodge and his wife then sold the body parts. The indictment also identified an alleged buyer who's accused of reselling the remains to buyers in multiple states. All 3 are facing charges, including conspiracy and interstate transport of stolen goods. New details about how 4 children survived a deadly plane crash that killed their mother in the Amazon. And we're learning more about the pilot's call for help.
It's been called a miracle. 4 siblings between the ages of 1 and 13 found alive after 40 days alone in the Amazon jungle, surviving a plane crash that killed their mother and 2 others. I always had faith, their father said. A preliminary report issued by Colombian authorities and obtained by NBC News says the single-engine Cessna they were in was airworthy, but it says the pilot radioed a mayday twice because of engine trouble, 35 minutes into the flight, and again 26 minutes later, calling, "Mayday, mayday, mayday, the engine is failing again, going to look for a river." The report, written before the children were found, says the aircraft crashed nose first into the jungle floor. These photos showing where investigators believe the children were sitting, in the back, avoiding the worst of the impact. But the report says they only presumed the youngest sibling, now 1 year old, may have been seated with her mother. The family says their mother died at the scene 4 days later. That report also noting the Cessna was involved in an earlier crash in 2021 due to loss of engine power, but was repaired and in the air again this past March. Incredibly, rescuers say the children had no serious injuries from the plane crash. Tonight, the siblings are still hospitalized and slowly getting stronger. Kelly Kobiella, NBC News.
Just unbelievable they were able to survive that long in the jungle by themselves. I think the oldest was, 13 years old, something like that. But you heard their father say he always had faith. I believe he said they were indigenous, and so they're used to being out on the land. And you know, he never had a doubt that his kids would make it through, and they did. All right, how about this one? Another kind of odd one for you. The plot of 21 Jump Street sort of makes a trip to life here. A 28-year-old woman was arrested along with her mother after she posed as a 17-year-old student at a Louisiana high school. Police say the woman used a fake ID to trick the school into admitting her. That also included a fake passport and a fake birth certificate. Martha Gutierrez Serrano and her mother have both been charged with injuring public records. No word on why she wanted to be enrolled in school or how long she was enrolled at the school. One of the main messages of Pride Month in June is making sure everybody feels safe and included. A group in Atlanta wants to reach out for migrants to know this applies to them as well. Sawyer Bussey explains.
My name is Leanne Rubenstein. I'm from Johannesburg, South Africa.
اسمي رامي الغريب وأنا من لبنان.
मेरो नाम सत्यम हो अनि म नेपालबाट आएको 15-20 वर्ष जति भयो.
मेरो नाम सुषमा हो र म नेपालबाट.
There is a space missing in Atlanta.
It's very, very difficult not only to just be an immigrant or just be queer or just be a person of color. And then you throw all those identities together, you're alienated from a lot of spaces.
A space specifically designed for immigrants and refugees who are also part of the LGBTQ community.
It's difficult being a refugee or an immigrant and leaving your home. Being queer and trying to find a community is difficult when you're from a country that does not necessarily accept queer folks.
So a group of Georgians made that space. It's called Pride in Mother Tongue. They host gatherings.
I would love for them to feel like they just came into their best friend's house. You know, you enter the living room, you meet your friends, and you get to be, you know, speak your mind and laugh.
It's an initiative of several organizations, including Compassionate Atlanta, Atlanta Pride, and the Refugee Women's Network. The group is new, so new they just walked in their first Pride Parade. The support they felt, walking down the streets of Atlanta, made them feel like they're doing something that's making a difference, that will keep making a difference.
And I'm hopeful for the future.
म भविष्यको लागि धेरै आशावादी छु.
अनि म भविष्यको लागि आशावादी छु.
عندي أمل للمستقبل.
And again, that group is so new to the city, they just walked in their first Pride Parade. Several organizations plan to meet twice monthly to create more events over there in Atlanta. Okay, technology marketed as a solution to solving crime could be a problem for closing cases. More law enforcement agencies across the country are using the software, but a new national investigation reveals that in the search for suspects, a trail of new victims is left behind. Sierra Cummings, News 12 alum Sierra Cummings, explains why the new tech can lead to false recognition.
November 25th, 2022, DeKalb County Police stop a car along I-20. The driver was Randall Reed. The 29-year-old was wanted.
You got 2 theft warrants. They're both in Louisiana. So I'm gonna have a subject in custody. It's gonna be him.
It would not be him.
I don't even know nobody in Louisiana.
Randall had never been to the state, yet officers in 2 jurisdictions there accused him of stealing purses in Jefferson Parish and Baton Rouge. His attorneys say Louisiana law enforcement linked him to the crime he did not commit by using facial recognition technology. FRT is software that analyzes facial features, comparing one image to another to confirm a match.
Put your phone in your pocket.
It was not the right person in this arrest either.
So I don't get to go in my house. No.
Nice, and I got a warrant for retail fraud. Go home.
In January 2020, using facial recognition technology, Detroit police linked Robert Williams to this surveillance video. The video shows a man stealing watches from a Michigan jewelry store. Robert, his family, and attorneys allege in a lawsuit detectives failed to thoroughly investigate beyond using the software. Outside a Woodbridge, New Jersey hotel, a suspect parked in a Dodge Challenger is accused of stealing from the gift shop. As officers are questioning the driver, he cranks up his car. Law enforcement later used facial recognition technology to run the actual suspect's fake license through the system. It falsely linked Niger to the crime he did not commit.
Aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, shoplifting, eluding. My jaw just dropped. It was just like, huh? Like, where did you get all this from?
All three jailed, all falsely matched, all black men. A national study finds FRT use contributes to greater racial disparities in arrests. Dr. Johnson's study examines FRT deployment in more than 1,100 cities in subsequent arrests in 2016. The results show agencies which use FRT had a 55% higher arrest rate for black people and a 22% lower arrest rate for white people compared to agencies that did not use facial recognition. Data by the National Institute of Standards and Technology reveals FRT has a wide range in accuracy across developers. For example, systems created in China have more accuracy in identifying Asian faces. Additionally, when it came to U.S. databases, the highest false positives were in people of color, Indian, African American, and Asian.
Yeah, and Sierra Cummings there with that story. Okay, moving along now. Father's Day right around the corner, which means we have some ideas so you can honor Dad and not break the bank. Consumer investigator Rachel DePompa talks to an expert for some out-of-the-box ideas to make Father's Day fun and affordable.
This Father's Day, how about getting Dad out of the house and to an event in your hometown? Sarah Bigham is a lifestyle contributor with the website and app Eventbrite. She says if Dad loves cars, find tickets to a local car show where he can go with some friends. Sarah even has an idea for the dad who likes an adult beverage after work.
Check out whiskey tastings and wine courses in your local city. These exist. You'll find hundreds of them, and there's thousands of them coast to coast across the country at all different price points. And this is a great way to get Dad out of the house and have him learn a little bit more about the history, techniques, how to make his own cocktail.
If he's a foodie, Sarah says, sign him up for a cooking class or look for a food tour in your city. There are barbecue tours, pizza tours in a lot of locations around the U.S.
If your dad's a sporty guy at heart, maybe you can get him some golf lessons, sign him up for a fun run, or even take some surfing lessons. Anything that speaks to Dad.
If your dad's adventurous, find something like surfing lessons or cave tours, or maybe even zip lining. Eventbrite.com lists all sorts of events that are happening in cities and towns across the U.S. All you have to do is search. With this Watch in Your Wallet, I'm Rachel DePompa.
So there you go. Some more gift ideas for Dad with Father's Day 3 days away now. So that's coming up quick. Cocktail dinner parties are making a comeback, but some drinks are difficult for non-bartenders to master. Our consumer tech reporter Jamie Tucker shows us a cocktail machine that could make you a home bartender.
The Bartesian is a popular bar gadget for people who like cocktails but hate mixing them. The original Bartesian cocktail maker is pretty big with 4 bottles for alcohol.
A lot of people don't have the countertop space for a full Bartesian, so this is the Bartesian Duet, roughly half the size, half the bottles, but still a robot bartender.
Here's how they work. Add your favorite alcohol to the included bottles and place in their respective positions on the Bartesian. Next, add one of these capsules or pods that contain the ingredients, the simple syrups, bitters, fruit juice that go in the cocktails. You can purchase pods for old fashions, Cosmos, whiskey sours, margaritas, and a wide variety. Here's where the tech comes in. Each capsule has a barcode. When a pod is inserted, the Bartesian cocktail machine reads that barcode and draws alcohol from the correct bottle. Unlike similar cocktail makers, you have the option to add your favorite brand of spirits. Maybe you prefer Patron to Jose Cuervo. That's up to you. With just 2 bottles, you may want to purchase a couple of extras so you're not constantly emptying and pouring if you like cocktails from different liquors. Select the strength, light, regular, strong, or a mocktail. Press the button, and in 5 seconds, you'll have a perfectly blended cocktail, much like you'll get at a cocktail bar. In my taste test, friends say they're just as good as you get in some chain restaurant bars, if not better.
There is a similar device, but there's one big difference. The Bartesian capsules contain no alcohol, meaning you can buy these online. You can't with the other ones. You have to go to the liquor store. That's What the Tech. I'm Jamie Tucker.
Jamie's had a couple of real good ideas recently, a couple good gifts, but they are a little bit pricey, and this one falls into the pricier category. It's around $370 on Amazon, and there's a smaller countertop version for $300. So a bit expensive, but if you enjoy a cocktail regularly, it could be real good for you. Okay, golf is already a tough individual sport, but playing with your family can be an added layer of difficulty. Our Alyssa Lyons introduces us to this brother-sister duo competing at this year's Vaughn Taylor Championship.
Be good.
You'd think it'd be relaxing, but it's not.
I think it's me. Yeah, I think it's me.
Watching golf has become Trina Martin's second job because her first is mom to Nathan and Sarah.
We were trying to find a sport that I only had to go one direction for. So, and their dad loves golf. I cannot golf at all. I was a swimmer. Anyway.
They took to golf like a fish in water.
They get along very well in a practice round. And then when the practice rounds are playing around on the course is over, they get very competitive with each other.
We share feedback back and forth between rounds depending on what hole is playing harder or not.
Go. I really like how he handles a bad shot because he kind of just like brushes it off and he takes it real easy because it's not the end of the world.
Watching it all happen is a sport in itself for mom.
I usually check out their attitude in the morning and see who's more stressed or who's relaxed or who's anxious, and then I will usually set out most of the time with Sarah, but with Nathan I have to be unnoticeable sometimes just because I get more nervous.
Even on the bad days.
They take it very well. I don't take it very well.
In Augusta, Alyssa Lyons on your side.
And those two representing the CSRA well in this year's Vaughn Taylor Championship, a tough tournament to get into, so congratulations for them. And speaking of which, we do have our sports coming up now. We'll go ahead and run this with Dan. We're talking SEC football, and we will mention the Vaughn Taylor Championship a little bit as well.
Good morning, everyone. Between getting rid of the divisions and adding a couple of teams from the Big 12 into the mix, there are major changes coming to SEC football in 2024. On Wednesday night, the SEC announced the 8-game conference football schedules for that season. In 2024, the Georgia Bulldogs will be welcoming Auburn, Tennessee, and Mississippi State to Sanford Stadium. The Dogs' 4th scheduled home game is against Florida, which will be played down in Jacksonville. Georgia's road schedule is going to be fun to say the least because they'll be traveling to Kentucky, and Ole Miss will face the Alabama Crimson Tide in Tuscaloosa and will battle the newly added Texas Longhorns in Austin. As for South Carolina, Williams-Brice Stadium will be rocking to sandstorm when the Gamecocks take on LSU, Ole Miss, Missouri, and Texas A&M, who they beat for the first time ever this past season. On the flip side, the Gamecocks' 4-game road schedule will consist of Alabama, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and will face the newly added Oklahoma Sooners down in Norman. Back on the home front, North Augusta has officially removed the interim tag for head coach Richard Bush, giving him the keys to the Yellow Jackets football program. Bush is stepping into the head coaching role after his predecessor, Matt Quinn, resigned back in April after just 1 season. Last year, the Yellow Jackets won their region title and made it 2 rounds deep into the playoffs. The third and final round of the Vaughn Taylor Championship tees off later today. Here's how all 4 of our local golfers are doing after their first 36 holes. Sarah Martin shot an 81 in round 2. Her brother Nathan Martin finished with a 72, so he's sitting at 4 over. Augusta's Tyler Newsom is at 9 over at the moment, and Evans native Nicholas Flight is sitting at 10 over heading into the final round at Bartram Trail. That's it for sports. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, Dan. And finally, the U.S. Army turned 248 years old yesterday, and the celebration started before dawn at Barton Field with a traditional birthday run. Our Will Volk caught up with the commanding general to learn more about the celebration.
It's a jog before dawn.
We got the entire installation out here to include service members from the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, and even the Space Corps to go out for about a 3-mile jog around the installation.
Major General Paul Stanton says this has become a tradition every time the Army celebrates a birthday. Every single person at Fort Gordon wakes up before sunrise to run together.
We all signed up to defend and support the Constitution of the United States. I mean, we couldn't be prouder to be out here to help celebrate.
It's very exciting to be part of something so large and so important to this nation.
Colonel Robert Murak helped cut the cake. He spent more time in the Army than he expected.
Quickly realized that I loved being in the Army, and 6 years turned into now over 33.
He likes this day, and Stanton does too. He says this is one of the only times all year the entire base comes together.
That gives me the chills, right? It's why I'm part of this business, because I know that the soldiers in this formation have my back and are going to stand on the left or the right and help me out when I need help.
At Fort Gordon, Will Volk on your side.
And the commanding general, Stanton, is a runner himself, so there's no slacking out there yesterday. That run started just after 5:30. If you watched our morning show yesterday, you saw we took it live just as that run was getting started. We also want to say happy birthday to Augusta. Yesterday was the 287th anniversary of the city. We've grown a lot since 1736. Clearly, so a little 2-for-1 special there. It was also Flag Day, so just hitting on everything yesterday. All right, that's going to wrap it up. You can always find out about these stories and much more up on the website. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, download our streaming app if you haven't done so already. You can do that on your Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV, whatever your favorite streaming device is. Got about 4 minutes here till morning mix with Zaina and Cliff, so be sure to head on over to the TV side to check that out, and then we'll be back here with some more News 12 Now a little bit later on this morning. Till then, we'll see you later.